Many players felt that Shards of Domination missed the mark in terms of randomness.
Everyone did, I think.
How did you not pick that up before you shipped them? Why didn't you hotfix something in that would just radically increase their drop rate? Radically? Surely? Yeah, so that's a bit weird.
Yeah.
And then and tier can feel the same way. Boils down to a question of viability. Having boots with the wrong secondary stat is different than having a 4-piece. Yeah. 4-piece is, of course, big shit. This is something they knew they needed to cut the long tail off it, right? So they kind of knew, like, right, we need something here to really help the people who are going to be the worst fucked over by the RNG. And that is the goal of the Creation Catalyst. And they say they know there are many player discussions asking for the Catalyst. So it's something they're keeping an eye on and talking about timing.
And
so they're just sitting there having a nice little chat. They're like, oh, look at that, it released. Okay, guess we don't have this discussion anymore. Right, on to Dragonflight World.
Literally counting down the clock for this thing to release instead of changing it. But that's a thing where, like, obviously I think that's fine. You put a long tail on it. For a start, 8 weeks is probably too long a tail, given how the game is played now. The game's played differently now than it was before, so you need to adjust. You can't go, what was the Emblems of Frost acquisition rate? Do that. That's fine. You can't really do that. It's a case of they really should go, okay, well, 8 weeks too long. Also, like I said, it's not an end of the tail, because you have 1 piece by now. Get your 2-piece. Fantastic. Still not 4-piece. You have 3-piece, get your 4. Yeah, if you have 2. Sorry, wait the next week for your 4-piece. Basically, there's a whole ton of downsides that I can very clearly see. And I'm just thinking, did they think this through enough? I obviously understand they don't want to just go 4-piece, just give it out for free. Some people are like, that's not fun, but yeah.
It's challenging. Something like, it's weird. Like, I got some tier from the Great Vault.
Yeah.
Got some from drops. You got fuck all.
I got 1 from the Great Vault. Big go.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, that's quite a difference in a major source of player power. And it's like, what is the fair way to do that? And I suppose if there was, say badges for your 2-piece, then maybe by now we both would have had 2.
Yeah.
Or something. Tricky. I think that this probably would have been fine if the Catalyst started week 4.
Honestly, yeah.
I think that probably would have done a lot of it, but yeah.
Indeed.
Nikki, we really need to get a promo code from Notion. Which makes I'm so stupid. I actually I got an email from some of their people for that.
Oh, did
because
you?
I asked for it because
yeah.
Our Notion, it's like we give them like $1,500 a year, I think.
Yeah.
How much?
Well, I'm pretty sure I can literally check.
Yes, you can do that where it won't pop up in the stream in case there was any, credit card info or something there.
Well, I mean, you go to my settings and you immediately see email addresses for all of the members, so it's a good thing you can do that.
That would be bad.
Yeah, sorry, we've just doxed you, Game Team. Sorry about that one.
But, so, because we just gave Notion a pile of money.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't. We pay for their service, and it's fantastic service.
$1,500 a year.
$1,500 a year is a fucking steal for the amount of value we get from Notion. So I guess that's some SaaS. Working well. 1.5k per user? No, $20 a user a month.
Yeah, I mean that's that's 16 members.
Yeah, it's for 16, and also the Notion personal plan is way better than it used to be. It's basically all you'd need as a solo person, because I think they've realized just Teams is where it's at for the big business, so they just kind of want the free product people to try that because look, I use Notion personally, evangelized it, brought it into the team.
It's great, yep.
Because I like some of the thinking of Basecamp, but I didn't really like all of Basecamp. So it's like, okay, well, I can just build half your feature set in Notion. Cool, done.
Indeed.
Sorry, Jason, but at least I bought your book. Yeah, so anyway, that's Notion. And maybe at some point we'll have a promo code, which very much would be a product we actually do use.
Absolutely.
So, with the Great Vault...
Love it.
Are you ready for a big fucking smile, my man?
I love it.
Great Vault was updated in Season 3 to include tier sets and change the currency rewards if all your vault options are not enticing. Here's the thing. You need... Okay. For the currency reward to at all make up for gear, You need to increase that shit massively, my guys.
So
Massively. Or you need to make it so that you can buy gear with a deterministic token or some shit that you get via the Great Vault backup, which in itself actually would have a few design issues that I would quibble about. But, you know, man, it's like, oh, yeah, you didn't get thing you want. Here's an entirely different category of consolation prize. And that doesn't feel satisfying.
Yeah, because I'm sure you're aware of this, Blizzard developers. I'm sure you're aware of this. The whole loot treadmill thing that you've designed is about like people having loot. The Great Vault was a adaptation and an improvement that encompassed other forms of gameplay from the Disappointment Box, which was obviously, I mean, it's called the fucking Disappointment Box. That tells you everything you need to know. The Disappointment Box from Legion and BFA, which was a literal, like, it was a bandage on the problem that M Plus opened up, which was farmable gear. So you solved that fairly handily in a very Band-Aid kind of way. And you're like, okay, sweet, that's fine, sure. The Great Vault's like an adaptation of those problems. But what you're doing is you've put another Band-Aid on the Band-Aid. You haven't actually closed the wound, which is, especially now that you've pulled a load of gear acquisition down and the Great Vault is it means that generally design-wise, and I'm sure you know this, I'm just fucking, what I call it? I'm preaching to the choir here, but the whole loot acquisition thing is reliant on the Great Vault to feel good. And when the Great Vault is random, and it's random week on week on week, you're looking at it normalizing over a year. You're looking at it normalizing over like a whole bunch of iterations, but you open it once a week. Which means for players who have bad luck, 1 week feels pretty bad, feels terrible. Getting that bad luck on the first week of an expansion, or the first week of a patch, which drastically decreases your likelihood of getting, you know, if you're a pug kind of player, of getting into raids and stuff like that, then that will kind of snowball. Getting bad luck twice in a row basically kills your feeling of gear progression. Getting it three times in a row, awful. And even like earning 9 slots doesn't help that. I'd love to see how many people average slots. I imagine it's somewhere around 5, maybe 6, maybe 4 or 5. And that leaves so much chance for bad luck to happen 2 or 3 or 4 weeks in a row. And I don't give a shit what your internal data says, because it doesn't matter.
What is noise? What is literally what is statistical noise in their data is a player who has perhaps stopped playing, or at the very least, for whom your system has really made them feel frustrated, disappointed,
I hate it,
sad, and like the time they invested into your game, because that's kind of how they're going to think about it, because they're thinking about the vault when they're putting that time in. Like, you are directly fucking them. And whatever your stats are, I know from even the experience of, I mean, this is the same probably for your guild too. The general chat of your guild's Discord server on reset day. Like, whatever the fucking trend line or average is, as you said, it is not reflective, because people's sample size of vaults they care about is going to be like 5 or 6 of, you know, those initial ones. And if those fuck up, you've just ruined it for somebody. Yeah.
Especially when what you've done is you've taken like, here's your ration of loot per week, because that's already what it was a lot of the time. It was, here's your randomly generated ration of loot from your Mythic Zeros, or sorry, your like Heroic Dungeons, and then your raid back in the day. And then they went, okay, well, we've just chopped your ration in half and put half in the Great Box, in the Great Vault. That's what it kind of feels like to a lot of people. And I think it is an elegant solution for Mythic Plus. I do think maybe getting progress over a week is a bit of a problem. If Valor was uncapped and then you didn't really care about the Great Vault as a Mythic player, that might be ideal. It would feel a little bit more PoE League or Diablo where people are rushing to the end, but it would probably work for a lot of those players, generally speaking. So, but it's just that thing of you're splitting up and rationing loot to the point where it feels bad, because you're going, okay, well, I didn't get any loot this week from the bosses because it's really stingy. Sure, I'll get into my vault. I'll get into my vault 100%. And then you don't, you're like, the fuck did I play this week for? I might as well have sat on my fucking 2 thumbs. That's what it feels like as a player.
And okay, so I'm going to sound so arrogant about myself right now.
Yeah.
I fucking made a job out of that. There are some people who think the Great Vault is a free happy bing bing wahoo that they just get every week because they naturally played the game. Those are just the people who basically don't realize what's actually happening because the glass hasn't shattered for them yet.
And they also likely get an average good result.
And maybe that.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say that is because what used to be progress that you definitely worked toward and definitely got every week has been turned into a random thing that, you know, for a lot of people, it's basically a binary 1-0 good, bad, right?
Yeah.
The Vault is not free gear. The Vault is just performing the function that badges used to in the past.
Yeah.
Some people say, oh, but the Vault's more exciting.
It's a loot box.
It's a loot box. That is exactly what it is.
It does solve some interesting problems in terms of access to specific gear, but it is a loot box.
It solves problems, but not in a way that is... It's problem solving, it's not game design.
Yeah.
And it's strange because there's even gacha games and mobile bullshit games that actually give you more control over your random bing bing wahoo boxes than the Great Vault has.
Yeah. The concept of pity rules doesn't exist in World of Warcraft. If you monetize gear in World of Warcraft, it would be so much worse than any gacha game on the market. It's fucking insane to think that.
Yeah.
But because you're not paying money, they don't need to give you a pity rule. So, whatever. And their idea of pity is a gem. Who gives a fuck? Or some currency. That's not what you do your shit for. You play the game to get gear, and then that's how World of Warcraft. That is literally how World of Warcraft has always worked since the dawn of time. And you're like, we don't have to respect that. We just have this other idea of you know what it is? It feels like they're thinking a bunch of ideas that are like in isolation. They're not looking at the whole of World of Warcraft and going, well, here's how everything links in. It feels like they've got like segregated teams, and they're like, okay, well, let's look at this Great Vault problem in isolation. Well, we can't give people backup gear because that's fucking stupid. We can't give them deterministic gear for that currency. Then the currency is always the right choice. Okay, shit. I guess the currency will just not give them gear, but it'll still feel rewarding because it is player power. Because they probably speak in the same way that the way they speak to us is likely the same way they speak internally, which is all the phrases of player power, all that stuff. And they'll think, yeah, you get player power for it, so that should be okay.
Yeah, gem's not as emotional as a bit of gear.
Yeah, and it's also not as permanent.
Yeah.
It might be like, player power, it matches the progression curve. You're like, it doesn't feel that emotionally to players. And I imagine that everything I say they completely know, but they can't act on. But, yeah, indeed.
Yeah, no, the Vault is a mess. Vault's psychology, that's what it comes down to. And I think it's very easy to just think of solutions to problems, but that's not game design. And I know there's some people who think that's game design. I would disagree with that. Like, obviously problem solving is a large part of game design, but
everything is game design in obvious.
It's just the emotionality of it.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the most important parts.
Yeah, it doesn't
craft the human experience.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what people do. Well, I think that's the one thing that I think especially a lot of spreadsheets and system design oriented people are going to ultimately feel this like naturally without putting a whole bunch of effort or getting people to specifically push them in the direction, which is the emotion of it's what matters, the experience of the user is what matters. No one cares about the reality; they care about their perceived reality. And that's a thing that they really, really should learn, which is interesting because I think a lot of them would understand being spoken to in the concepts of everyone has their own like perceived reality, and you know their reality is a product of their circumstances and how they think and see the world. They'd probably completely understand that from a system perspective and like the definition, but then they'd maybe find it difficult to work that into their work and how that's like, okay, well, how does the user feel about this vault when it happens? How do they feel? Like, think about that in terms of loot progression overall, but yeah.
Michael, did you get a certain email from Ian today as well? No. Yeah, and like I can tell you the reality where this works. I'm not going to say just double gear across the board, but if you actually look if you look at a Path of Exile or if you look at a Diablo 3 Loot 2.0, if you're dealing with a system with a high degree of randomness, you need to be super fucking generous.
The shotgun approach,
and that's a little bit of WoW's problem because it's not.
Yep.
So they have some of the loot mechanics of those character build oriented RPGs.
Yeah.
But that's not their game.
They're trying to have both ways.
That you can't have both. You need to decide.
Yeah.
Either you go and make, way more sets, way more different, like, just things I can put in my character in different ways I can get crazy power, way more.
Yeah.
And then give me a whole fuckload of loot. Or we swap to a more, honestly, simple FF-like system. I think it's like we're trying to straddle the line to get the best of both worlds, but I think it's just really... the best of both worlds is achievable on paper. I do not think that it translates to the actual experience of playing the game really that evenly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing where I see, obviously, like King of Gains is saying, Vault fine, player mentality is bad. Players individually can change their mentality. The group organism that is players can't change their mentality. You can't change everyone's mentality, which realistically means that if the Vault is fine under certain set of circumstances, and those set of circumstances are not true, then the Vault is not fine. And that's the thing where, what can you change? World of Warcraft's loot design. What can't you change? How people have been trained over the past 20 years of game, or even how people have been trained in the past couple of years of society, and I guess the lowering of attention spans and stuff like that. World of Warcraft probably needs to be a faster game in a whole bunch of ways,
or
especially in terms of the competition as well.
Slower and more satisfying game, which is what I would personally prefer, to be honest. But I don't know if that'll.
But yeah.
I don't know if that'll be like the tenable way to push the design, given how things tend to be, because the other game will come and focus on the bing bing wahoo loot bukaki, and then that game will take off.